Lekon Animoshon playing the baritone sax and Igor Chukwu then later became Christopher Uwefo playing the tenor sax. When you see a lineup like this, you realize just how horn-dependent the sound that Fela and Tony Allen, band leader, were developing in 1974. Hi, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Beyond the Verse, and today we're going to talk about the hornification of Afrobeats. With all the names associated with arguably one of the best albums to ever come out of Nigeria, one name that doesn't get much, if any, love or mention when people are talking about Made in Lagos is Malik Venner. And who is he? A South London-based saxophonist and producer, famous for mixing R&B and hip-hop sounds with the serenading horn melody he has become so famous for. He's worked hand in hand with Peter J to give us tracks like Reckless, Yes, Sweet One, Mighty One, Blessed, and Smile. A few years back, he was also caught up making with another famous Nigerian, Burna Boy. He worked on a project for which he got a Grammy Award for his contributions to Twice as Tall. Now, Made in Lagos would have been Grammy number 2 if the album was not, according to Wizkid FC, robbed. But that will remain a story for another day. Venner has since gone on to become an authority in the hornification of Afrobeats. The truth is that Venner is not the first person to bring saxophone sounds into the same room where Afrobeats is being made. Heck, the very progenitor of the sound, and by that I mean Nigeria 70s, also known as Africa 70s, later known as Egypt in the 80s, you know, the band that played the legendary Baba Fela. This band regularly had 3 other saxophonists on the roster, with Fela himself playing the alto saxophone, Lekon Animoshon playing the baritone sax, and Igor Chukwu then later became Christopher Uwefo playing the tenor sax. When you see a lineup like this, you realize just how horn-dependent the sound that Fela and Tony Allen, band leader, were developing in 1974. Of course, Fela was a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist in that said band, but the sax was frequently called upon for the solo melodies that preceded his pidgin verses in those later 1970s records. Every song made after Album Close solidified this idea further, with refinement and sometimes emphasis on how sax sound could really elevate this Afro-jazz experiment. That experiment is widely known today as, drum roll please, Afrobeat. But it would also seem like since Unknown Soldier, released in 1980, the next best saxophone music came almost 20 years later in 1996 on the album loosely translated, This Is an African Thing, C'est un African Thing. This is a great opportunity to mention the next character in this story, because I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of the most talented artists to ever come from Nigeria, Lagbaja. Considered the unofficial prodigy of Afrobeat by some, he stayed very true to those saxophone riffs and solo melodies for as long as his impactful career lasted. He championed it until modern Afrobeats music came to the scene. And with the emergence of the pop Afrobeats era, the saxophone has played less and less of a role in shaping the modern genre that came from the original Afrobeat arrangements of '74. Maybe it was a skill issue, or a preference had a hand, but we found that producers relied less on horn instruments in making this new sound altogether. Of course, every once in a while, a track would shine through having excellent instrument characteristics, or like in Jaye Jaye, where Wizkid tapped on the genius of Femi Kuti to breathe life into a modern genre that was then very much unfolding. Or you could say a genre that was just getting defined by its players and the diaspora looking in. So, I might be wrong here, but it wasn't until records like Alarm Clock on Burna Boy's Twice as Tall that we saw as an intentional reliance on the saxophone horn to carry the percussion and strings on that record to astronomical levels. P2J deserves credit for seeking a return to that purity that Tony Allen before him was trying to create. Just because music is now easier to make with computers doesn't mean we stop using instruments. One should augment the other because they are not mutually exclusive. I appreciate a good recording session with the band in attendance and sometimes a full orchestra in the room making music, which is why studios like the Electric Lady in NY are there to do the Lord's work. Before I completely digress, I want to show you that this is why when Made in Lagos came along, with 5 of the 14 tracks vibrating with tonsil strength and acoustic magic, it is not hard to see why this is one of the favourite, or my favourite, Afrobeat albums ever made. And I know a lot of people will agree with this, even if you are not FC. It signalled a re-emergence of the sax sound in this genre in a way that maybe no one had done since the beginning. It was the missing ingredient needed to elevate the sound, not just for critical acclaim, but for a pure sense of enjoyment. It reminds me of this anonymous quote I read some time ago that said, "It is almost as if the music sounds better when it is made by music people." This project is also in a way the pioneer, because since then, other projects have tapped that sound more confidently, now across multiple tracks. Wizkid himself has become a fan of the saxophone, as can be seen on multiple successive records since Made in Lagos. But other artists as well have been reintroduced to the sunshine that a good sax melody will bring to a music arrangement. Whether such production is done in Surulere, Lagos or in Brixton, UK, one incredible talent worth his flowers and more is Ike Sanga. I'll pull his full name on the screen so that I don't butcher it for no reason. He also worked on the Twice as Tall album on Onyeka, Baby to be precise, and since worked on so many heavy projects including Davido's Timeless, The Textiles at All Costs, and 2 Wizkid collabs in 2025, including One Condition, Song of the Year, Song of 2025. He also plays the flute, as can be heard on Olamide's Metaverse of the Ikigai project. He is highly sought after, and rightly so, because talent like this deserves to be heard. So let me just say a much deserved welcome back to the saxophone for making its way back to the Afrobeat sound, and long may your reign continue. That was Beyond the Verse, and we were talking about the hornification of Afrobeats. See you soon. Bye. Right.